And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me is my good brother here in the temple, the man behind the Monarch's Tribunal, good brother Monarch.
So every so often, I think back to an old job I had, where I walked by two guys sitting at the bar, and I heard one of them say, with confidence, "I would rather be Mexican than a Mormon." And after all of these years, I have no idea what would lead a man to say that line of dialogue.
I don't know, have you seen the magic Mormon underwear?
It's not the point. How do you get from that to "I'd rather be Mexican than a Mormon"?
I think you already defeated your question by one thing. You were at a bar.
Well, there was a bar there, the whole place. It wasn't like a bar, and midday. But it could have been booze related. I'm not throwing that out.
Yeah.
But there was still a conversation that took place before that, and I have no idea what that conversation is, and it's bothered me off and on for years.
You have a habit of walking into the strangest things. I guess this is karma paying you back for the fact that you have cursed everyone I know with the knowledge that there is a place called Beaver Dick Park.
Hey, look, I didn't name the place.
No, but you still inflicted it on the rest of us. So.
But yes, today we're talking about Shroud of the Ancients, and
Yeah.
I have no idea how we transitioned from what I said to this.
Yeah. Thanks for leaving the transition job to me, Dick.
Hey, I said Shroud of the Ancients. I transitioned it.
Anyway, but yes, we are back with a brand new season of the Valley between him and I, coming off of the very good but very strained in some aspects run with Titan Effect. And now and the almost there-ness of the dig wasn't bad, just a little undercooked. We are back with what the wheel had landed on when I did my usual spin in Shroud of the Ancients. Now, all that was available for this is the core book. It is on DriveThruRPG, but the website of the creator is not appearing on this internet. The only I'm going into this semi-blind. I ended up getting this as part of a package of games. But the only thing that I can say for certain is that it calls itself a D5 RPG.
No, I've never heard of an RPG using a D5.
I think
Just me?
I think the closest that I ever saw was some damage rolls I've seen in things like Dark Heresy and some of the sister games in that FFG 40K universe.
Now, for those wondering, you can get weird sided kind of dice as like a D5, but for your typical person, just how they suggest doing it. Like 1 through 5 is just 1 through 5. 6 through 10 on the D10 is just another set of 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alternatively, you could probably also just do 1 and 2 as one, like just half the number, round down.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, this was an early case of Kickstarter. This came out in 2013, as it shows here. And as mentioned, I can't really say too much on Dark Tavern Press because their website is kaput, and I didn't see if they had made anything else. But
I did find a Twitter account for them, but they post something like once every 2 years, so it's basically just this, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Now the PDF is about 218 pages, and I do have to dock points for the fact that there are bookmarks, but they're completely useless. And let me check the index. Let me open this up in a different tab. Because I want to see if we have we have an ad for medieval collectibles. This was definitely early 2010s. A appendix for equipment and the like. A reference thing. No index. That is going to be a point docked. Yeah, I've gone through the last few pages. There's an appendix at the end, but there's no index. And
That's unfortunate.
for those of you who are new to this channel, not having an index or not having bookmarks is an automatic docking of points. Because
Say this was released once, 2013? So I'm not going to be as harsh on like just not the nice bookmarks on the left side of the PDF like we usually see. I think that was a thing around then, so it probably should have them, but I'm not going to be quite as harsh in relation to that. Lack of index, though, there's an index. Of course you should have an index.
the only time I give slack to the not having an index thing is when you have a case where there's not enough pages to really justify it, like in a zine. You know, a zine is not gonna be more than like 25 pages, so there's no real point. Unless you have a very text-dense kind of thing, which kind of defeats the purpose of a zine, if I'm being honest. Or you have hyperlinked bookmarks. For example, the Fragged games don't have an index, but the text is searchable and it's full of hyperlinks, so it gets a bit of a pass there. But here, there's no excuse. Especially the lack of an index. We've had games that have had indexes in one form or another since the 80s. I'm aware that when setting it up, it's a royal pain to put that thing in, and yes, there's the table of contents, but when you need to look up a specific rule, a table of contents isn't enough. It definitely isn't enough if you're looking at some of those old table of contents in White Wolf's games. But after going into the Letter of Hope, which we'll be skipping, of course, it then goes into the what is a role-playing game thing, which which of course is skipped, and an example of role-playing. Then getting started.
The only real relevant thing there were the D5s and how those were used.
Mm-hmm.
And 1d5 you're going to be rolling as a destiny die, which it seems we'll get into what that entails.
Yeah.
A bit later. And the core of the system is rolling 5d5.
Mm-hmm. Now, the fact that it says on the Destiny die that if you roll a 5 on it, you're able to roll that die again and add the result, immediately makes me think of the wild die from West End D6.
And that 5 rule for your Destiny die keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Much like the wild die. And of course, you can use D10s, just counting the 6 through 10 as 1 through 5, or just do what I do and have it that you roll half.
I'm curious as to why they went with D5s. Because it's an uncommon dice, it's an extra step once you're rolling regular dice.
Yep. After...
Like, I don't mean it like snark, like, I'm legitimately wondering what the reason to go with the D5 is.
Yeah, we'll hopefully find that out as we go further.
Yeah.
But after that, we go into the important terms. This is kind of similar to the lexicon thing that's at the front of a lot of White Wolf games and the glossary of terms that's in, well, my game. But then we have a remembering segment, you know, written as a in-universe letter, which is a interesting move.
I will say, I do like how these little, like, lore bits are written on these kind of, like, just scraps of paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice little touch. Again, not something we're going to read out here, but it does add a bit of flavor.
Oh, yeah. And after that, we get into character creation, which is where we're going to be spending the bulk of our time today. So there are 7 steps to creating a character: creating a concept, choosing a race, generating attributes, choosing the distinctions, picking skills, purchasing equipment, and creating a history. Now, even though it says it is 7 steps, for the purposes of what we do, it is significantly less. If only because when we're talking about steps to character creation, we are more often talking about the ones that require actual crunch.
Because I don't think we need to explain to you what a character concept is.
Mm-hmm.
So step one's pretty easy to skip over.
Yeah, it's nice to have. It's nice to have there, but it's not relevant for our purposes.
First one that'll be relevant is choose a race.
Mm-hmm.
We get a nice little list of races here available. It doesn't give us any of the crunch behind any of the races right here. And I forget if we had that listed for a later date. To talk about those specifically.
Let me check the itinerary that I set up, just so I'm ensured that I'm not talking out of my ass.
It's not listed as one of the separate dates, so I think it's going to be a little bit farther down. We'll probably have some specifics.
But we
on the next page.
Mm-hmm. Well, question answered there. So the races available are Humanos, self-explanatory, Dwendari, Nasen, Rathnal, Sotaris, Vental. I will give the game credit for at least making an attempt to come up with its own names for the races instead of just using dwarf, elf, halfling, etc.
That said, I have skimmed some of these pictures like a little bit ago, and it's kind of the same races.
But each race's heritage will be is described in two sections: cultural and physical. Cultural defines the characteristics of their race into daily life, social structure, spiritual beliefs, and so on. Physical heritage is the heredity of the race. Once you choose one to play, apply all racial traits to your character. Though it does imply that you can create new races and sub-races of existing people you can introduce as PCs or NPCs in your campaign. And we have the first one we have is the Humanos, which is separated into several cultural archetypes. The Aegeans, yeah.
I don't say that with confidence.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate having in-universe names, but I would appreciate even more having pronunciation guides. But then, of course, we have the big crunch part of things is things like the racial distinction and, to a certain extent, the height and weight adjustments if they are present.
Now it does seem they'll have some basic equipment they started off based off of, like, say, Aegeans.
Mm-hmm.
Base equipment, what is it? Clothing, shirt, breeches, and all that. They also have a sling bag, a small pouch for their coins, and one item related to family that is valued at 5 silver pieces or less.
Mm-hmm.
Cultural traits, it doesn't list anything specific you get, so that looks like that's going to be fluff as well. But we get favorable distinctions. They get language, trade speak. Rank 3 is which is an intellect skill.
Mm-hmm.
Racial traits, they tend to have. Oh, those are physical. Okay, I'm not liking that this is like kind of mixed with crunch and flavor.
It's a very 3.5 and Pathfinder thing, and to a certain extent, AD&D also did that.
Like here's the thing: like if they just had like favorable distinctions, a bit of flavor about what that is, and then the say, language trade speak that comes with that, that would be fine. But jumping from basic equipment, which you need to know for crunch, to cultural traits, which you don't need to, immediately to a different thing, the distinctions, which you do need to. I'd like that to be a lot more consistent. It's especially more annoying for us who are mostly just talking about the crunch.
Yeah. But I do appreciate that instead of doing humans are the jack-of-all-trades race, we have different subtypes.
I'm also going to know, because we've got, what is it, racial distinctions, 5 additional points to spend on skills or distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of one of the reasons I like a bit more of the mechanics to be presented in the book first. Because I have no idea what to make of that line.
Yeah, but because of the different types that we have, which I'm skimming through, obviously, you have
those basic few things I mentioned are going to be kind of the big things that change from each of these subtypes.
Mm-hmm. But then we get to the Naseri, who very much are the setting equivalent of Wood Elves. And they have a few traits of note. Language, Naseren, rank 3. Hand bows, rank 1. Blades, slashing weapons, rank 1. Natural lore, rank 1. Survival, rank 2. As well as a few adverse traits. Expressive, rank 1. Meticulous, rank 1. Vow, defend Terath and her animals from abuse, rank 2. As well as a few racial distinctions. Night vision, rank 2. Distinguishing characteristics, crystal blue eyes and small pointed ears, rank 2. The unspoken word, rank 2. Naseri can communicate with other Naseri through thoughts. Then we have the Senalari. I'm probably mispronouncing that. The Protectors of the Plains.
I would guess Naselan free?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we might both be wrong.
Yeah. Who I guess I could say are plains-based elves, which is an archetype you don't see as often.
The nomads.
Yeah. Then we have Rathnal, who they're described as stout, hardy people, who tend to live underground, so dwarves. And the Ari Rathnal, which, since they're described as children from above Terath, I guess you could consider them surface dwarves.
Actually, no, I think our Garanfnal are dwarves. They've got a mug of ale and an axe with a big bushy beard.
Mm-hmm. But there's a good amount of subtypes with each race.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the little art that we have here that almost feels like it was from somebody's journal. But then we have the Certes, which are lizard folk. And the Vental, which are described as a mix between a humanoid specimen and some other mystical entity. But then we finally get to attributes. Attributes are scores used to define your character. There are 5 attributes that help define your character: might, agility, presence, intellect, and essence. Humanoid races have attributes that range from 1 to 25, with 8 or 9 being average. Adventurers tend to have slightly higher attribute scores than the common man. However, artisans and others that specialize in a particular trade or craft may have higher scores as well. So, might is your physical power. Agility is balance, speed, and general prowess. Presence is persona, comportment, and mental fortitude. You don't hear comportment often. Intellect is your education, ability to think, solve problems, and process information. And essence is your inner strength and affects every aspect of your character, especially with connection to surroundings, both natural and physical. Characters with an intellect score of less than 10 are generally illiterate. But then we have a few tables for how much you can lift above your head with might, how your carrying capacity, and how your carrying capacity affects encumbrance.
One thing I'll read that we kind of skimmed over a bit because I think it's relevant for essence.
Mm-hmm.
All living creatures must have at least an essence rank of 1. Only practitioners of the dark arts speak of creatures that possess no essence.
Yes.
Mechanically, that's probably not going to be too relevant right now to what we're going over, but for the system, I think that's, and the setting, I think that might actually be important.
Mm-hmm. So, when determining attributes, all attributes for an adult humanoid would begin at rank 5. And the amount of points you get to spend, which are spent on a 1-for-1 basis. Except for essence, which is purchased on a 5-to-1 ratio, that is based on the tier of play. If you're going at the Explorer tier, then you're giving 25 points to distribute. Adventurer, you're given 35 points to distribute. And Heroic, you're given 45 points to distribute. What is interesting with this sort of point distribution setup here is, unless I skimmed it, I didn't see anything about a attribute cap. Never mind. There is a attribute cap. One that is based on racial, but it just means that beyond that point, the cost is multiplied times 5.
And something I'll note, each one of these also tells you what the average attributes will be. Like Explorer between 9 and 11 and 5 or 6 Essence.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I've actually mentioned quite a few times in other stuff we've talked about. Give us at least a sense of where you expect these numbers to end up. So people aren't just coming in completely blind if they know nothing about the system.
Pretty much. And then after that we have aspects. These are the 5 primary aspects. And aspects, I think in this system, would be akin to derived abilities. For example, awareness, which determines how many times you can act in a round, how quickly you respond to surprises, and so on, is agility, intellect, and essence total. Whereas stamina, which is this game's version of HP, is might, agility, and essence totaled. Meanwhile, mana, which is, well, your MP, is presence, intellect, and essence. And will is the resistance you have to charms, tortures, or attempts to force you to take an action against your nature. Is might, presence, and essence. And then destiny is how you get destiny points, which I guess I could consider the extra effort mechanic of this game, and it is tied straight to essence. But then there are some secondary aspects, such as fear rating, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is the total of your might, your presence, and your size modifier, if any. And movement, which is self-explanatory. This is how many feet you can move by expending 5 action points, so we are using an AP system. It is agility rounded to the nearest 5. Though it... And it looks, because of how they have this whole 1 and 2s become 0 and 3 and 4s become 5, I think it's meant to be rounded to the nearest 5. Which was what it actually says. It's just, a lot of times when rounding happens, there's the question of, okay, are we rounding up or down? And natural defense is akin to your awareness, plus or minus any modifiers or from distinctions or skills. Let's see. Then we have the... Go ahead.
I was gonna say next we get into some nice little tables with all the races. Like we have the height and weight table, which gives you the base heights, modifiers, and weights for all the races. Same thing with age. And then we get the peak attribute chart.
And this basically means that the peak is not a hard cap, I will repeat that. But it's more that once you get past this point, it becomes much more expensive. And this is even worse in the case of Essence, as it points out. By exceeding one's racial peak in Essence, it would cost 25 times that of any other attribute. But after that, you choose your distinctions. There are 4 types of distinctions: background, physical, mental, and spiritual, each containing favorable and adverse traits for characters to choose. So this is essentially advantages and disadvantages. Starting characters receive 5 free points to purchase ranks in distinctions. They are purchased at, unless otherwise noted, they're purchased at 1 point per rank and can go up to rank 10. Some may cost 5 points per level, but still go up to rank 10. To gain additional points, which will allow your character to choose other favorable distinctions, you must acquire adverse distinctions. Starting characters can purchase a maximum of 10 points worth of distinctions beyond the 5 granted. Monarch, you getting flashbacks to the advantage-disadvantage thing we saw in Anima, where you were capped on how many disadvantages you could take?
Yeah. Now the real question is how blatantly abusable this will get.
Which, that's something that you can, from a designer perspective, you can't really account for.
To a degree, you can. Like, I think there's always been some systems where you've looked at it like they should have saw how stupid it was to make this a particular disadvantage. Because it's not accurate. But there's always going to be a degree of abuse you can't really control. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I do find it interesting that some of the ones we see here go only to rank 5 when they do list out what happens between ranks. But first we have background, then adverse background distinctions. And then we have physical distinctions at adverse. Then mental distinctions. Yeah, there were positive physical distinctions. I just skimmed. And there are quite a few, but this is where that whole mixing thing comes in. I'm not a big fan of the fact that when they write the fluff of the distinction, it's in normal text and then italicize the actual effect, but it's in the same paragraph. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
Because I could see someone easily having the whole paragraph just blend in their head. I really think they would have been better served just doing at least one break.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I think it might be beneficial to read just a couple random ones,
mhm.
just so we get an idea of what these actually do.
Yeah, I'll read off threat awareness. You have a knack for spotting an opponent's strengths and weaknesses. If you're able to observe your targets for at least one round while they are engaged in combat, you gain +1 bonus per rank in this distinction to your effective agility when in determining your initiative order when you act against those opponents. You must observe them anew each day as their tactics may have changed.
Compare that to say
Mhm.
one of the disadvantages, let's just pick the first one, addiction.
Mm-hmm.
You have the habit that you cannot ignore. Perhaps it's alcohol, pipe, weed, etc. You must spend 1 hour and 1 silver's worth of goods per rank of the distinction each day indulging your addiction as soon as possible upon awakening. So any day that you do not indulge in this activity, you receive a penalty equal to your distinction rank to all skills and will checks until you do. For each day you do not indulge, your will reduces by 1 point per rank of distinction. Once your will reaches 0, you become incapacitated until someone administers to you to your need and you recover your will naturally, without magical assistance.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it goes into that quite a bit. And
There's
there,
a good number of pages of these distinctions.
yeah, and something and maybe it is in the appendix. Let me check. But I feel like this is something that could do with a chart that summarizes the effect and the range of ranks. In fact, let me check.
I don't think there is one. Wait, there's a list of distinctions closer to the end, but they don't have any kind of just little.
Yeah, and that's a bit of that is an issue because, as mentioned before, some of them are going to be 1-for-1 as far as point cost, and some of them are going to be more expensive. Like Unlucky is 5 points per rank.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's almost pointless to have this distinctions listed here close to the end.
Though I am seeing one potential issue, but I'll get into that later. But after that, it goes into choosing skills. Now, ranks and skills can be purchased with skill points. These points are determined by using the total points in each aspect to purchase skills in each category: stamina, awareness, mana, and will. Additionally, a character receives 5 points to spend in natural skills as well. So the approach when it comes to skill rankings: 0 is unskilled, 1 to 5 is novice, 6 to 10 is skilled, 11 to 15 is expert, 16 to 20 is artisan, 21 plus is master. Also, during character creation, if you have rank 12 or more in your intelligence attribute, you gain 1 rank in the regional history skill at no cost. If you have an intelligence attribute of 15 or higher, you have a language rank of 5 in your native tongue. If it's 14 to 4, your language rank is a 3 and must be purchased to a rank 4 if they wish to become literate. Intelligence ranks of 0 to 3 speak at a rudimentary version of their native tongue and do not have the capacity to read. During character creation, the initial cost for each skill is 1 per rank with the exception of spell circles. And and it goes into the types of skills. Stamina skills are at all things physical, from training from general athletics to weapon and armor uses. Awareness skills range from searching to discovery to tracking and hunting. Mana skills encompass spellcasting and lore-based knowledge. Will skills, which I think there may have been a typo because it's not in the same font, cover a large scope from social skills to intimidation and torture. Natural skills are those that a character learns as a youth. These skills should not exceed rank 2 unless approved by the Shroud Master, i.e. the GM. Should not include weapons or armor skills. Natural skills can come from many of the aspect skill areas and will be annotated with NS in the skill description. Skill rates combined with the 5d5 pool of dice. You roll 5d5 and add the result with their skill ranks and compare it to a target number. Skill results can be improved if the target number is exceeded by 5 or more. And since we now know that you're rolling all 5d5s no matter what, let me load up any dice. Because it's time for me to go probability nerd.
I'm pretty sure it's 12.5 is the average.
Any dice wants to be... Hang on, I need to look at the...
It said, because you're rolling more dice, isn't it going to skew more towards the center than it otherwise would every time you roll?
So the highest probability, now they got any dice to work, is 15. With the odds of that being 12.1%. Or 12.2 if I want to round up. But yeah, it skews around 15. Which can mean several things depending on what the target number ranges are going to look like. And we'll probably get to that later. But then we have related skills, where some skills can provide a bonus to other checks. This kind of reminds me of the whole linked skill thing that 3.5 tried that didn't really stick around because nobody wanted to cross-reference that many skills.
I remember some games we tried to do it, but we just kept forgetting. Because who's going to remember that nonsense?
Especially, that's the kind of thing that you can do when you have a smaller skill list. But for the skill list that, say, Pathfinder 1E had, and even 2E to an extent, no.
Like, I got the idea. They wanted to make certain skills that didn't see a lot of use to maybe try to help add some functionality to them, like that long list of knowledge skills they didn't need.
Yeah.
But it didn't work.
I've mentioned many times how much of an annoyance I had with how different knowledge subjects or different crafting subjects were treated as their own separate skill you had to spend points on. But you can rush a skill, which increases the AP cost but decreases the difficulty. You can do a skill untrained if it's a physical skill. It just puts a -1 modifier in the -5 modifier in the roll. Combat skills can be attempted untrained with a -5 for each rank of the item. i.e. an untrained swing of a hand axe, which is a rank 2 weapon, is minus 10, while an untrained wing with a battle axe, which is a rank 3 weapon, is minus 15. And offhanded actions, unless you have ambidextrous, when you're attempting to perform any action offhanded, you add plus 5 action points and minus 5 to the skill roll and minus 5 to damage if you're attacking. Then we have the format for the skill list. And then we have the full-on skill list. This is definitely something I'd expect out of a system that came out of the early 2010s and / late 2000s. You know, with a lot of skills and a point-based approach. We once again have cases of certain activities being treated as individual skills, like swimming.
Now, here's something I'm going to highlight because I think it might point out a potential problem I have with this skill list, and that is fast draw. How this works: the skill represents your ability to unsheath or ready a weapon quickly. When initiating combat or unsheathing a weapon for the first time in a combat situation, the character adds one of his effective AG for each skill rank when determining when he acts for first attacks only, and a special rule for being in a standoff with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a weirdly specific and limited skill. I don't know why this would be here next to things like balance and climb.
Yeah. Now, I will note, as mentioned, you use the total points in the major aspects to determine how many points you have to spend in each category. And since I didn't see anything otherwise, I'm assuming, or actually, no, never mind. It's one per one, except for spell circles. But you know how? Well, back with Pathfinder 1E and 3.5, if you had to pick one skill as the least used skill, or the least the skill that the least amount of points was spent on, what skill would you guess it is? My money is on use rope or use magic device.
Was use rope Pathfinder? I thought that got lumped in with this other stuff. Appraise, maybe? I think use magic device got used a bit more often because there's enough kind of weird character ideas and builds that can make use of that, but
yeah.
There's a number of them, I'm just like, what? Knowledge skills in general, crafting skills in large part because the crafting systems in those games were not good.
Yeah. Now, the issue is somewhat mitigated in the fact that you don't have one big point pool. You have separate point pools based on aspects. But things like use armor, use shield, use weapon, all of that kind of stuff.
Look at that craft skills table. Wheelwright, stone cutter, roper, tanner.
So we have that problem once again, especially with all the different AP costs for different skills. I mean, I always appreciate an action point system, but I have my limits. And it comes down to some things being far too situational than others. And of course, since I brought it up earlier, we have use rope.
Yeah.
But
look, I appreciate Pathfinder at least trying to condense that stuff down. I thought it did much better because it did that than 3.5, but it was still so much. And that's what I'm seeing right here.
If anything, the issues multiplied because of the different subtypes.
On one hand, though, are we gonna be in a situation where it almost doesn't matter how many crafting skills there are, because you're like, why would I ever be a crafter in this game? I think this would definitely be worse if the crafting system in this game is actually good and you'd want to jump into it, than to see this list of crafting skills.
Yeah. That being said, some non-magical things being put in the mana skills category bugs the hell out of me.
Animal husbandry? What? That makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah.
Handle poisons. Nothing on that list is magical poison.
Yeah, but skimming past the massive skill list, then it goes into purchasing your equipment. So you're starting resources. You start with 5d5 times intelligence. That represents your character.
We actually have economy and equipment for next week.
Yep.
This is where we put that off.
Yeah, this represents your character's ability to gather and manage funds prior to adventuring career. So basically, your starting money. Then creating your character history, which is more on the fluff end of things. And then it goes into economy and equipment, which we will get into next week. But I think one of the... I want to check something, and it's going to be something that's in the back. Because unless I am mistaken, nope, unfortunately, there is no sample builds. Because when you're dealing with a game that now I will give it credit for the fact that there is a unified skill chart in the back, as well as a list when it comes to distinctions. As well as an action point cost, which we'll get to that later. It does concern me that there isn't a set of like pre-gens or even a set of sample builds that one can use as a starting point. So while there's a lot of variety that I could potentially see with character creation in this game, it does suffer a problem that I've seen in a lot of games in the late 2000s and early 2010s. And that is not providing early guidance.
I think there was basically a time there too many people just kind of assumed people would be coming in with an idea of how just tabletop games are going to work, especially with similarities it's likely drawing on from other established games.
Which
I don't
is...
like that happened, but I think that's kind of where the root cause of this came from.
Yeah, for me, the issue that I have is you can't, even if someone is a veteran of TTRPGs, when they're stepping into a new game, they're effectively starting fresh. Some people will be starting fresher than others, but they will be starting fresh nonetheless. And you look at a game like, say, Shadowrun. It's had the famous archetype pre-gens for years. When you have this level of point-based affair, it is best to provide... I'm not saying provide full-on pre-gens, because that's what everybody ends up accusing me of saying when I bring this kind of thing up. But more than it's important to have some kind of distinction, some kind of baseline that you can give. I realize that'd be tricky with this one because of the fact that you have 3 tiers of play. but I don't think it would be too much to ask for say, okay, if you want to do like a City Watch kind of character, these are the things you might want to put points in. If you want to do a mercenary kind of character, these are what you'd want to do. If you want to do a lore master kind of magic user, same thing.
Like, again, I still give them credit for telling you about where the average stats are intended to fall, which is something I really still wish more systems we've looked at would. So they get the credit there, but past that, I don't feel like I could sit down and just put together a character based off what we went through simply.
Now I want to make something explicitly clear. The issue that I have here is not with the way character creation works, but the way it's presented.
This book needed it needed to be put together better just from a standpoint of looking at it, following along, and keeping like an easy flow.
Yeah,
like this has been a rough start to this book.
Mm-hmm. The character creation part of things. It's definitely a rough start, and I think an easy fix for the character creation part is just providing a set of sample archetypes. But
Sample archetypes and keeping things a bit better organized than they are. Those two things would do wonders for this beginning section.
And, well, definitely adding in some kind of
Index.
Yes.
And a nicer chart. Like just go full on Pathfinder and 3rd edition feat charts for your distinctions and stuff like that.
I'm not sure if I'd go that far.
I mean, just to have the chart there for like, here's all the stuff neatly organized.
Yeah.
Here's a quick summary of what they do.
I just don't think.
Here's a page number you can find it on.
I just don't think Pathfinder and 3rd edition are a good example to use here because they certainly have their problems. Do I need to bring up how feats were in one big ass list
instead of just like combat feats, sections of feats? Like, they could have been organized better, but at least having those charts would have been nicer than not having them.
Yeah. It's really a case of navigation is a big damn deal, especially when you're going to be dealing with this sort of point-buy approach.
Yeah.
And Lord knows if I'm running this game, that's one of the first things I will have to handle. We did get a bit of an understanding as far as the die system. But I'm not going to say we have a full understanding yet, because one of the things that we need to nail down first is how the game is going to handle damage and how the game is going to handle difficulty.
Yeah.
Especially since there seems to be a rule of 5 skewing. So that is something we'll be delving into in the coming weeks. But with that said, a thanks to everyone who stopped by for this one. We'll be back with more of this game next week, and tune in tomorrow as Stig and I go into the wonderful world of Tokyo Nova, which, since it means being able to talk about Japanese tabletop again, you know I'm going to be all in on that. And of course, there's going to be a few more things we've got coming down the pipe. And who knows, I may end up streaming FF16 later tonight. But until then, On behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.